I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am.
So let us begin this time of meditation by settling in gently to this very moment. Allow your body to become still. And if you feel called to, you can gently close your eyes or soften your gaze. And sit with your spine upright but relaxed, with your hands resting softly, maybe with your palms turned upward. And I invite you to take a slow and deep breath in, and to gently release that breath. Take another slow, intentional breath in. And release. Sinking deeper into peace. And one more slow, slow breath. And when you're ready, let that go. Continue to breathe in the peace of each moment. And exhale anything that doesn't serve you. Breathe in joy, hope, love, whatever that need is of yours. Breathe that in. And release fear, unknown, worry, that which is not serving you. And as your breath begins to find this beautiful rhythm, this rhythm that we don't need to control, we just simply surrender to it. And if your thoughts happen to drift away into other things, that's okay. I invite you to move back and return into this space. And let the words inner peace be your anchor this morning. Breathing in peace. and exhaling peace. And simply allow your breath to return to its natural rhythm. I want to invite you to bring your awareness to this present moment right now. Not the past, not the future, not even 2 minutes from now, but this now moment. And just notice the subtle, the rise and fall of your breath. You're welcome to put a hand over your heart or another on your belly, or simply sit as you are, but just feel yourself being breathed by God, by life. The quiet rhythm of life is moving within you. And there's nothing that you need to do or to fix, nowhere you need to go, but to simply be. And so as we breathe together, we go a little bit deeper, even further still, beneath the thoughts, beneath the noise of the world, and to hear that quiet presence that's within you. This sacred stillness. And that presence is the divine within you. It is the Christ consciousness and that infinite peace that is always there. So for the next couple of moments, we allow ourselves to be in a space of surrender and to listen to what wants to be revealed to us. And so we breathe and we allow ourselves into this sweet, sacred place we call the silence, to listen, to be in the silence. We are remembering who we are. Beautiful, irrepeatable expressions of the divine, made in such a peaceful image and likeness that it is our nature to be peace and to bring peace. So I invite you to affirm to yourself, I am peace. And breathe that in. Affirm, I am divine stillness. Breathe that in. And affirm that the presence of God within me is my peace. And by anchoring in peace, we become living expressions of it. Now I invite you to gently bring your awareness back into your body, to feel your body supported. Maybe wiggle your toes or rub your hands together. Feel yourself coming back into this space, into this presence. And take one more deep breath and slowly exhale that. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes and carry the peace within you that you just experienced into your everyday, this moment and beyond. So it is.
You are an author of the impossible, the living, breathing creation itself, the unseen realm from which the world will flow with the grace of spirit as well. You are an author of the impossible, mystical nature of all life itself, the breath of God from within your soul springs forth from your heart as well. There are forces at play that would have you believe that the world is on fire and out of control. Deceivers will tell you you'll never achieve the truth of your heart and the work of your soul. But be not discouraged from that which you know to be true in your heart and define it. For you hold the answer to the questions you ask and the ways and the means to assign it. You are an author of the impossible, mystical nature of all life itself, the unseen realm from which the world will flow with the grace of spirit as well. You are an author of the impossible, mystical nature of all life itself, the breath of God from within your soul springs forth from your heart as well. It's time to let go of the things in your life that no longer continue to serve, like the anger of loss or the fear of the cost that you won't stay ahead of the curve. The reality is you're never alone, though many may tell you you're wrong. You're never separate from the source. You're the notes, the singer, the song. You are an author of the impossible, the living, breathing creation itself, the unseen realm from which the world will flow with the grace of spirit as well. You are an author of the impossible, mystical nature of all life itself, the breath of God from within your soul, speaks forth from your heart as well.
Thank you, David Trolley. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I am delighted to introduce our guest speaker today. Reverend T.J. Woodward is a best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and pioneering leader in the field of conscious recovery. He is the creator of the Conscious Recovery Method, which is a groundbreaking approach that integrates spiritual principles with addiction recovery, focusing not on what is broken, but on awakening the essential wholeness within each person. He's an ordained agape minister and the founding minister of Agape Bay Area. Reverend TJ bridges ministry and modern recovery work with deep compassion and practical wisdom. His work has influenced treatment centers and spiritual communities around the world, helping people heal the root causes of addiction, such as trauma, shame, and spiritual disconnection, while reclaiming their true nature. He's also the author of several best-selling books, including Conscious Recovery, Conscious Being, Conscious Creation, and is widely recognized as a thought leader in the integration of spirituality and healing. I am so delighted to have you today, Reverend T.J. Woodward. Welcome. Welcome to Unity of Davis.
Oh my goodness. I feel so welcome and I feel so incredibly grateful. And thank you for that beautiful meditation and for agreeing to do it. I just felt so alive hearing your words and feeling the vibration of them. So thank you so much. And Reverend Richard and everyone, thank you for the invitation. I'm so incredibly grateful to be here. And my talk today is awakening your authentic, unharmable self. And as I was reflecting on that during the meditation, what came up for me is what is the opposite of awakening? Because the title is not becoming your authentic, unharmable self or discovering, it is awakening, meaning that it is right here, always available, the truth of who and what we are. And as I was sitting with the talk today, I was thinking of, to me, perhaps the most powerful sentence ever spoken. And I know that's a bit of a bold statement, but I'm going to go with it this morning. Perhaps the most powerful sentence ever spoken is said to have been spoken by Jesus, and that is to be in the world, but not of the world. And I've been reflecting on that a lot over the last month or so as I see what's happening in the world and asking myself, what does that mean to be in the world but not of the world? So if I'm not of the world, what am I of? I'm of that essential truth that is Unity's foundational principle. There's only one power and one presence active in the universe and in my life. And one of the things that I've been really aware of, definitely for the last 6 months, is Unity teachings, New Thought, ageless wisdom teachings can be really inconvenient. And what I mean by that is nothing to me is more painful than 99% surrender. And the only surrender we actually need to make is to understand the truth of who and what we are, that regardless of what has happened and regardless of what we've done, there is this essential place within us that each of us is a spark of divinity. And to know that is the ultimate surrender, because then I can be in the world. And notice the sentence wasn't pretend like stuff isn't happening in the world, but it is to be in the world, but not of it. One thing that I've been really reflecting on and talking about, maybe for the first time in the last few weeks, is a memory, a recent memory that I rediscovered, and I now can feel the experience of it. And I know I was either 3, 4, 5, or 6 years old because I know which house I lived in my little small town in Indiana. And I remember lying in the front yard and feeling the sunshine on my face. And I had just been told about heaven and hell. I had just been told that if you're good, you go to this place called heaven, and if you're bad, you go to this place called hell. And I remember thinking, that doesn't seem true to me. There's something not quite right with that. Now, I'm going to speak from my 4, 5, or 6-year-old self. So these words aren't necessarily how I feel about or what I think about the world today, but this is my thought about it at that time. I had recently discovered certain aspects of the world that felt like they were crushing my soul. Because before that experience, I just remember being an effervescent, uh, infinite being. It wasn't that I needed to learn how to be an expression of the one power and one presence. It was innate in my experience. In other words, it was an embodiment. I didn't need to remind myself at that time. It was just who and what I was. I remember just feeling like the luckiest kid alive, the happiest kid alive, mesmerized by a butterfly, a blade of grass, the sun on my face. And at that time, there were so many things that were happening. There was a war happening. And I remember watching that on TV. I remember hearing the way that a lot of the men, the men in my life talked about women, and felt very crushing. I remember my grandfather, who I loved very much, saying racist things that felt crushing to my soul. I remember hearing messages like, "Don't walk like that, don't talk like that, don't throw like that. You're walking like a girl." And I remember thinking, what's wrong with that? And so my little 4, 5, or 6-year-old psyche was trying to manage the experience of who and what I am, and yet this programming that was starting to seep in. And so when someone taught me about heaven and hell, I remember thinking, that doesn't seem right. And again, I'm speaking from my very young self. I remember thinking, I think this is kind of a low level planet, that we've come here and we could see the divisiveness, and I could see the all the isms that were happening. And I remember at that time I started to lose the sense of my essential beingness. And then I also had this awareness that we were either sent here or we chose to be here to be love. That in the midst of all of this divisiveness, and again, I was very young, so I probably didn't have the word divisiveness or even the isms, but I remember feeling and hearing and sensing things that were counter to the truth of who and what I was and who and what I am. And then I had this awareness that some of us have chosen to come here to be love. And that, to me, as one of my earliest memories, is something that I am really owning now, because it could be true that we've chosen to be here, that we signed up for this planet, that we've chosen to be here and find our way to unity teaching so that we can be the frequency of love in the midst of the world. And when I think about the profound sentence, to be in the world but not of it, it was 2,000 years ago, but in the scheme of things, that's not very long. Where I think we're at a place, I know we're at a place, and I'm aware that we're at a place where it's time for us to actually say yes to this. Not to say, yeah, that sounds really good on a Sunday morning or on a Wednesday evening or when I'm in a workshop or when I'm meditating. I remember for the first time hearing the word practice, spiritual practice. What are we practicing? I'm practicing for how I can be in the world. And the awakening of the unharmable, authentic, unharmable self is a remembering of the truth of who and what we are. It's not moving toward, it's returning to that place of essential perfection. And I think it's very interesting that if we want to really know, whether we call it God or source or love or frequency or energy or our essential beingness or our Buddha nature, talk to a 3-year-old. Because a 3-year-old knows. And so, what does that tell me? That tells me that this isn't something that we're here to learn, it's something we're here to remember. That the innate experience of being human is a spiritual experience. We have been in a paradigm for many years now where we say we are human beings having a spiritual experience. And then we shifted that some time ago, many years ago, to we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And that is a profound shift. And I woke up one day and I had this what if question. What if we are entering the era of spiritual beings having a spiritual experience? That we are ready to embody that the human experience actually can be always infused with the spiritual essence of who and what we are. That we're entering this profound period in human evolution where each of us has a role in remembering the truth of who and what we are. And again, it's inconvenient for some of us because I'm going to back up. So I remember being this effervescent, infinite being, and I remember all the conditions of the world. And at age 7, I had a profound experience. And I remember like it was yesterday, I felt like my heart closed. I became afraid. I became closed. I decided that the world wasn't safe. And there were plenty of things happening in my world that didn't feel safe. But that became who I believed I was. Again, I'm 7, so I didn't probably have the way to articulate that in my mind. As a matter of fact, the interesting thing is my mind wasn't even developed. So I just absorbed and decided these massive things about myself. And then I became that frequency in the world. And lo and behold, I kept re-experiencing that. My journey from that moment of believing in my own brokenness was a journey of an outward search to try to heal that which felt broken inside, also known as addiction. At some point, please, the world saved me from this existential crisis of forgetting who and what I am. I got sober in 1986 and walked into my first unity in 1988. And I remember walking into that unity, and it was in Dallas, and there's a big unity in Dallas, and there's a couple other ones there. There's this little cute unity. And I walked in and I felt like I came home. And it wasn't what I was hearing, the words that people were saying. It took me a while to start even noticing those words. It was the vibration, it was the frequency, it was a remembering. It was like my whole nervous system calmed down, and I remembered just for a moment a greater reality. And that greater reality, that touching that truth became a different way of being in the world. Now, I would love to tell you that from that moment, I remembered my essential truth and I never had to worry about believing I was broken or damaged or that the world was broken and damaged. That took me many, many years of practicing spiritual practice to continuously remind myself that the truth, the essential truth, the unharmable place exists in the midst of everything not only happening in the world, but happening in the world of my mind. And so the journey to me of awakening this unharmable, authentic self is a twofold path. One of spending dedicated time in the silence or going into spiritual community or having those moments where that frequency, that vibration penetrates our heart and we remember our truth. And then the other part of the spiritual journey for me is pretty much questioning and ultimately unlearning everything I've picked up from the world that is not that. And so perhaps that's the greatest meaning of being in the world, but not of it. It might not be about what's happening in the world. It might be what's happening in my world. And I love what Byron Katie says. Byron Katie says, we're walking around with a projector and there's a piece of lint on our lens and we see it everywhere in the world and think it's happening outside of us. And we try to shift the world that seems broken. And all we really need to do is clear that lens and remember who we are. And suddenly we're in a new world. Now, that does not mean that we pretend like things are not happening in the world. And perhaps that's the greatest possibility of our time, that we're no longer turning away from the conditions of the world. We're remembering who we really are, and then we can be a profoundly beneficial presence in the world. And I remember hearing my friend Michael Beckwith say, "We are not here to save the world." And I leaned in, and he followed it by saying, "We are here to serve the new paradigm." The new paradigm is a paradigm that is beyond the conditions of the world. And we have been programmed to believe that the news is all the horrible things happening in the world. We've been programmed to believe that, and yet that is absolutely not the truth. Yes, there are things happening in the world that might require or be yearning for the love that we are. But if I am in the conditions of the world, in other words, if I believe I am my own brokenness, if I believe the world is broken, if I believe I need to save the world, then I'm contributing to that. When I remember who and what I am, I can be a spiritual activist. Because activism is so often, this is broken and I need to come in and save it or fix it. Nothing inherently wrong with that, except the litmus test is, how is that working? It's like fighting for peace. We've been doing that for a long time. How is it working? So when I move into a place of curiosity, openness, and presence, I like to say I'm studying to be a cop, curious, open, and present. To be that beneficial presence on planet Earth is to remember very deeply who and what I am, and then to be that frequency in the world. And we shift from the law of attraction to the law of radiance. And throughout this service, we've been focusing on that, to be that love, to be that frequency, because there is no condition of the world, there is no condition in the world that love cannot heal. And heal is even an interesting word because it implies that something is sick or broken. It became so simple to me. When I believed I was broken, I saw the world as broken. And I believed it was my job to fix it or to change it. It was also called being in my 20s. The world is broken. I need to fix it. And it was an interesting era. And then I realized something so powerful. And when I say realized, I don't mean a thought, but a remembrance, an embodiment of, oh my goodness, the truth of who and what I am is peace, is love, is freedom. And to be in that frequency and walk in the world in that frequency has a profound effect on planet Earth. A wise person once said, the only way to speak about spirituality from the highest level of awareness is to speak in paradox. Because I will acknowledge that my first decade in New Thought, I really grabbed on to change your thinking, change your life. Oh, no, don't have any negative thinking. Only think of love and light. And I did that for so long. And then I realized there was this moment of deepening where I understood that it's not only about the mind, it's about embodying and remembering through an emotional experience and ultimately through that embodiment of the spiritual essence that I am. And then the world is paradoxical because, yes, we can see all these things that are happening in the world that feel painful and feel sad and look like division. But I'm going to make a bold statement. I don't think we live in a divided country, a polarized country. I think we've been conditioned to have polarized thinking. I was conditioned to have polarized thinking, us and them, and good and bad, and right and wrong. And when I'm in that frequency, I cannot help but create more of it. And maybe it's a little egocentric to think this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think in 100 years, in the year 2126, they're going to look back and say, this group of people were starting to get it. They were talking about oneness. They were talking about that we're all one, because there is a choice that I get to make on a daily basis. How am I seeing this? How am I viewing this? How am I contributing to this? Not from a place of judgment, but from a place of curiosity. Krishnamurti said the highest form of human intelligence is to see ourselves without judgment. And when I can see myself without judgment, I can come to a simple truth. When I believed I was broken, I acted that way in the world. I also saw it everywhere, and it was something that needed to be fixed. When I understood at a very deep level the truth of who and what I am and what I was, I acted that way in the world. Can it be that simple? I recently interviewed a therapist friend of mine, and he said, he's a scientist, right? And I like to say science is beginning to catch up with what New Thought Ageless Wisdom has been saying. The observer has a profound effect. And he said, can you measure that there's an unharmable place within, an essential place that's unharmable? I said, actually, what I would like to measure is what happens when we believe it and when we don't. Because I remember being a kid and hearing about the placebo effect. And I remember thinking, why aren't we talking about that more? Then I came to Unity and they're like, oh, we are talking about that more. My belief, my beingness, my frequency, my energy is what creates what I call reality. So if I believe I'm broken, I act that way in the world and say, see, I am broken. See, the world is broken. When I come from a place of essential wholeness, I see that everywhere, even in the midst of seeming division. And again, not pretending like it's not happening, but asking, how can I serve today? How can I be the love that the world is so desperately hungry for and thirsty for? Because at the deepest level, every human, what do we want? Love, connection, safety, and presence. And so what I want to close with is a simple invitation. And that invitation is to be in the world, but not of it, to use those profound words that were spoken or said to have been spoken 2,000 years ago, and now ask us, are we ready to say yes? Not as a mental construct or an idea, or that sounds really nice on a Sunday morning when I hear someone say that. And then I go out in the world and see something, I get activated, I get pulled. And the great news is it's okay to get what we used to call triggered, I call activated. It's okay because we can remember, oh, yeah, that is true in relative reality, but ultimate reality is love. And when I am being love in the world, it has a profound effect, not only on the way I see the world, but on the world itself. So, yes, it can be that simple. And yes, we do have a role here. And that role is the only thing that will shift consciousness on the planet. And we know that at Unity, and we live that. And then we open up to the infinite possibilities. So I invite you as we go throughout our day to simply ask yourself, I'll ask myself, who am I being in this moment? What am I perceiving? What might happen if I remember what a 3-year-old innately knows? I am love, I am peace, and I'm simply going to be that in the world. I'm going to radiate that into the world and see what happens. I am so incredibly grateful to be here this morning, so incredibly grateful to have spent a few minutes sharing with you, and I feel so much love. I feel so much love even in the technology. I just think technology is so amazing. I was thinking about being a kid and watching the Jetsons and thinking, how cool would that be? And here we are. So peace and blessings, everyone. Thank you so much.